Hello. Do you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So let's see where we are. Take my agenda. 1 second. And let me share my screen. Right. All right. 1 second. Wait. I lost my window. Okay. I see. It's on the same. No. This one? Yeah. Okay. That's the one, right? You see my screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, I'm using the same. Yeah, I did a different browser. So it's a bit of All right. So this is the agenda that we had or that I have so far. Is there any other agenda bashing we need to do?
Oh, I just added this this last one. But,
Okay. Okay, yeah, we can discuss. So first of all, yeah. So yeah, first of all, what I wanted to also show, and I actually looked a little bit at it, but in the past when we were, so if you look, what I was thinking about is, wait, did I put the wrong? Okay. So here we had, in the past, we were managing our projects through a board, right? Like this, you see? So these are all the issues. So in the past, we were doing this. So I think we have to revamp this principle again, right? So that you can see through the board what are all the issues that we are working on. And then we have it all grouped like that. So you can track the process through that system, right? And so basically these are issues. So this is no longer up to date, right? But this is typically how other people managing the project in general. Right? So we can actually, if you remove this, so you can assign tasks to various to do in progress and done, right? So done, we don't probably have to show, right? But so we can actually see what is happening between all the different things. And these are typically the issues or the open PR that you have into your project. Does that make sense?
yeah, and this is automatic when you have these tags on the issues.
Yes, so correct. So basically what happens is that like this one, right? So these are actually issues that you are having the project. So this is old, right? But you can actually then label these, right? So these are labels that you can add to your GitHub project. And then based on that, they will appear in the right column, right? That's one. And then you can also, yeah, so you assign them. But basically this is an aggregation of all the issues that you have in the various repos in your project, right?
If you were to, on the main, so on this board page, press add item, does this create a new, so bottom left, for example, does this then
create a new issue, and then you can select which projects, so whether it's the docs or config server or what have you, yeah.
Okay. So it has to be associated with one of these projects.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it has to be within the repo and within the project itself, right? But yeah, that's okay, right?
Yeah, no, it's just a curious.
Yeah. So I feel that we have to reintroduce this a little bit. So this is then the docs, right? But you have them for data server and schema server, and so you can have them for all the repos. Yeah. Yeah, but I was looking at this, but so this is still the old view, right? So we have to clean it up and do that. And then you can also have different views, by the way. So you could actually have various views on this, but these are all, for example, all the list of issues that were I filtered at the time. Yeah. So I think these topics that we have here and stuff like that, we should add to this list, and then they appear immediately onto the board. If we don't have an issue that is tracking it, we should create one, right? And then we have it covered in the board, right? And as such, we keep track. I mean, the document is okay, but at some point you lose track of the actual work, right? Okay, so maybe let's go and start with release content, right? So we have, I think the content we had right now was the fix for the blame. I think these changes are in, right? So the question is, do we need to build a release this week or not?
Was this now merged then?
I don't know the exact state. Is Marcus or Hans on the call?
I think the protos are outstanding, but the blame on the main is merged, right?
Yeah, we can have a look if you want. It's data server, right? Which is a PR. Which issue is it?
I don't see them open. I know one of them was closed. There was one for data server, and I thought one for SDC protos, but I don't see them.
A blame config fix excluding the deviation intent. Is this the one?
Yes, yes, that's one of them. Yeah.
This is merged, it seems. And then we have
Yeah, the protos is still pending.
I just see it's merged. I see Hans merged it. It's number 86. Yeah.
Yeah, this is also merged.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then this will be ready. Maybe a question then is what's the state markers for the path elements or path slice?
I just
Throwing the path slice away and using STCPB paths. We ran integration tests, and they showed errors, and I haven't investigated that. There was another request from Vim, like loading one of a really big config that we internally have for testing, and yeah, shifted focus to that. But yeah, I'll definitely postpone working on that and look for the debugging.
Yeah. Yeah. So when that one's done, then I will look into the logging that we discussed a couple of weeks ago, and updating this PR that I opened with the latest changes, and then using the slog backend as agreed maybe 3 weeks ago. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Thanks. I don't think that there needs to be a release maybe until. Yeah, I don't. a release could be nice if it will take longer for this these other ones to be there, because started introducing this blame to some colleagues, and they, I think, are interested in playing around with it. So it would be good if it's in a working state. So
yeah, we should try to release this week with these changes. Is that correct, right? So this is path slice, by the way. Should that be included? That's this.
I want to have that included, yes. But yeah, blame is on me to to get that tested and fixed.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I already have changed dependencies from SDC Lite to this branch and so on. So
Right.
okay, yeah.
Okay. So then we should, if this is in, we should release, right? That's what I'm hearing.
yeah.
Okay. It's done, right? It's merged. Okay. Then I had for the, anything else on release content?
Good for me.
Yeah, okay. So then I had, maybe we should go through, so I tried to list for myself all the things that we still should do. And these are more the bigger topics, right? So I think the first one, and we should probably discuss this one, right? So this is basically having sensitive data as part of your config, right? Maybe we should call it like that, right? Right. And the config. So that can be secret or password or hashes, right? So there's a bunch of that, right? MD5 and yeah, or SHA-1. Then there is the network-wide transaction. I think the one also long-waited is that we should try to implement right now. And I think it's okay to have it all collapse all together, but we do know that there are people asking for the distributed architecture, right? So meaning that you can scale in and scale out these various components, right? Then there is Yang 1.1 compliance. So we are not 100% Yang 1.1 ready, which is still, we are investigating what to do there. Then suspending a target. Okay, that's from you, Alex. That is suspending, meaning.
Yeah. So this was from a call I had today, and there was a question whether it's possible to suspend syncing and pushing to a target during specific times. So, for example, the upgrades or testing something out or something like this, where it wasn't enough to just suspend the config, but you really wanted to sort of do the equivalent of deleting the target resource for a short time and then having it back again.
Yeah, okay, so you want to have an ability to, for example, disable the target or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, something like this.
Okay. Oops, disable targets. Oops. Okay, and then logging, this is the backend that we were just discussing. I just think it's not maybe huge content, right? But are there other big items that we should think about? I just wanted to list it. It's sometimes it's good to get a bit of an overview.
what about the issue that Alex has seen with the clear text password being sent and then the box reports?
But that's I think it should be covered in this section, not?
To me, that's just like how we handle secrets and passwords. But okay, if that falls under that, then fine.
Yeah, but now you say this. There's another thing that came up as well during testing with the deviations. In some cases, you have a deviation that has actual and desired value being equal. This is, for example, in the case that you have a container with a key or a list with a key, and you're modifying a value there. You also need to specify the key as an override, right? So you'll have, for example, name and a value, in which case you'll receive two deviations, one for the name and one for the value that you've changed.
Because the name implicitly exists.
Exactly.
And and that deviation is an overruled deviation, I assume.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And the question is, I mean, that gives visibility in case that there are sort of collisions. But does it make sense to list a deviation for values that are not actually deviated?
Yeah, but okay.
It's more of a sort of a discussion point to see if that's something we care about or not.
This is deviation strategy with keys, basically, right?
Strategy with what, sorry?
Around keys.
Yep.
Yeah, so the goal of this was not to list all the various small items, right? Because, but I'm okay listing them.
No, it was not so much about the small, but there are other cases where you have equal values and so on, as listed as deviations. And should it be that we list, should a deviation include cases where the actual and desired value are the same or not?
Keys are reported.
This was just an example of how I found it appearing, but yeah.
Or a child, right?
Yeah, the input is true. It can also appear on regular values if they're defined into separate.
Yeah, but then they are reported. They are reported as overruled, right?
Yeah, yeah, they are. But the question is whether a deviation should be reported for actual and expected values being equal. Because they're overruled, but there's value. I mean, you could have, as Marcus said, two config snippets that have the same path and the same value, but with different priorities. And the lower priority, or the less precedent one, would show an overruled deviation, but that deviation will contain desired value A, actual value A. And I don't know how much value this brings, right? Then you just have a lot of deviation.
But we are not reporting. The actual value should be what we have, and the desired value should be what the lower priority says, right? So why should they be the same?
If you have two intents, intent A and intent B, and they both set the same MTU.
The same.
And they set the same MTU value, but one is with a higher precedence, so a lower priority value. Then on the lower precedence one, it will be reported as a deviation of type overruled, although the value matches the intent.
In that case, I think it should not be reported.
Then we need to adjust that.
Yeah, this is the discussion I wanted to start, basically.
That we should not report. The problem with the keys is a different one. The problem with the keys is I don't know. I mean, I understand why we are doing it. It's kind of that's a different thing.
This would be solved though with this approach too, because if the keys would be equal always, right? So if you assume that we don't report equal value deviations, then these key deviations would also disappear.
Yeah, I think we should not report those. I don't know what the implications are, but it doesn't seem logic to report something where the values are equal.
Yeah, I mean the comparison in that case do not go as far as checking the
actual value,
the values and comparing those. It's just like, oh no, there is like this intent is not the highest, so we simply report overruled. That's
okay.
basically the shortcut processing in that case.
Yeah, we should probably check that then.
Check or change?
Change.
Okay.
Then it's not really related to keys, right?
No, it's around actual equals desired.
Yeah. That this is, for example, keys and overruled values with the same data, right? These are two examples. Maybe there are others, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Maybe you want to add the production-like environment to it.
Yes. Production systems with Talos. Yeah, and then I think, I did not add these. These are the things where your team is working on, Severin, which is the SDK and the CLI, right? But I didn't add them here.
I think it's okay. But I think the production system is more interesting.
Yeah,
for people.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, Talos is an option with Cilium or whatever, but I just think the goal should be to also have something else sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm lost here. Production system. What are we talking about?
Yeah, we have some issues when you do with Cilium and stuff like that. The system doesn't come up.
Okay, but what's this point about? Like, do we
need to fix it.
But you're saying just EG, so do we want to list certain Kubernetes distributions, or however you call them now, and make them or test them regularly, or like, what do we want to do here?
Yeah, first thing we want to make sure that they work, right? And then we have to see whether we can put them in the CI systems. Yeah.
Okay, and we only go for Talos right now, or
no? This is just an example.
We
know that Talos doesn't work, right? So that's probably one to look at first, and then secondly, we'll have to see whether there's others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, not all of them you can get the system, but Talos, for example, is you can actually install without the license and stuff like that. I think OpenShift you also can get somehow. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this list doesn't have to be complete, by the way. I just wanted to, the reason I'm putting it there is just to get a sense of where do we start as a next activity, or who can take, these are things that people can pick up potentially, right? And so it's actually for that purposes, plus also to say, okay, if we take the next item, which one do we pick? That's why and this list will change, right? So it's not that this will potentially change or grow, right? Or hopefully reduce as well. Okay. So maybe I think if you look at prioritization, then probably where should we decided last time that we start on this one. I think that still holds, or not?
Yes,
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I also think it's an important one. So can we, my idea was a little bit to zoom a little bit more into it, given that we discussed it a little bit, and we have the open issue as well, I think. Is it okay to zoom a little bit into that one right now, just to flush it out, that we can start some activities around it? Is that okay?
Yep, for me, good.
All right. So then I'll take the issue. Is it here?
189, I think it's this one, the 5th from the bottom.
Yeah, this one. Yeah. Yeah. So there is something.
And then in the linked pull request, I guess. It's this.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. It's a. Yeah. So I had a few more thoughts around this one. Yeah. First of all, I think, and I saw Dan is on the call as well, right? So the first, the thing is the following. So the idea is everybody up to speed on this thing or not? Should we do a small recap? Long story short, what we have today is that given in a config, we can have sensitive data. So for example, passwords or hashes or TLS certificates and what have you, right? And so the idea is to avoid having them in the config, but refer to them either through a secret or to, I think we also set a no-op, right? We somewhere discussed just to clear the text somehow, right? So the consensus or the thought was, so the problem that we have is that how do we specify those that data, right? And so the consensus right now is, or the current thought of handling this is that we create a dedicated CR, which basically has content paths. So and I think they always point to the leaf of a given config path, right? And then instead of having the real value, we point, for example, through a secret reference in the cluster, right? And so that's the first thing. Now, I'm of the opinion we can have multiple of these configs on a given device, because I feel, and maybe we should create or look at my drawing that we had last time. Again, just to ease the discussion, right? I have to find it. Okay. Yeah, upgrade to the latest Apple release, and it has changed quite a bit. No. Where do I find this? Wait, I think I have it. I thought I had it. Yeah, okay, I got it. Here we go. Yeah. So this was the drawing we had last time, right? So basically, yeah, so we had different options, right? But so I think the thought is, for the sake of simplicity, right? So we have what we call, maybe we should call it sensitive config or something like that. I don't know whether that's a good name. And then we have config snippets, right? So the idea is that you have config as we have right now, right? We have sensitive configs, and that have basically paths to secret reference. And the first thing that I was trying to say is that we should have probably multiple of a given device. So like we have multiple configs, such that people then can decide how they use it. So all of this, what I'm drawing, is per target, right? So the first thing that so the idea is to separate this piece from this configuration. And the reason is that, it's easier to handle deviations and stuff like that. So the reason why we believe that we treat this separate from this is that if we report deviation, they will be reported on behalf of this, although there has to be some specifics to be done. It's because we have to masquerade the actual value. Otherwise, we make them visible in the clear, right? So, but is everybody okay with the fact that we would have a separate config snippet besides the regular configs that we have today? So that's, I think, the first decision we have to make. And then whether it's one or multiple, I believe we have to support multiple per target in order to allow, because, for example, I believe that system management, so like SSH, TLS certificates, which are typically system level parameters, are to be managed differently from maybe MD5 or SHA-1 hashes for the routing protocols, for example, right? Now, you can still manage them as one, right? So that's okay, but I think we should allow for them to be managed by separate configs on a given target. Okay. So if we are good with that, then I think what the config server is about has to do is basically resolve the sensitive config paths, actually the secret references, if they are available, and they should pick the right secret or the content that is in the secret. They should pick them up, and before sending it to the data server, they would be replaced with the actual values that are in the secret. Okay. Then when it comes to the data server has to, so we treat these as probably higher priority configurations. So of course, this, I will leave it up to the operator, or maybe we should pick some values ourselves. That's TBD, right? So, but the goal of the data server is to actually mangle them into the path, and because they are higher priority, normally they will override. If there is other values put in here, they would override them. And then when we report them, and what is also important is that they should never be seen in the logs. Or if they are seen in the logs, they should be masqueraded, right? And then when we report deviations, so when we get the actual values, we also need to take care of, in the deviation reporting, that we do not send those paths with the actual value, but in a masqueraded value, as well as the running config should not contain the actual values in them. And maybe there was an option, or there was a discussion that we had a knob where we could see the actual value, right? So that's somehow my view of what we should do from a high level perspective. Any comments, questions? Remarks? I had one, but that's more from an implementation point of view. If you look at sensitive config, right? By the way, is that a good name?
I think so.
Yeah, I feel that it's, yeah, that was my view of how to use it. One question that we have here is, in the data, in the config server, we manage them not through etcd. The reason why we manage these not through etcd is that they can be extremely big. which can go above the size of etcd limit. I have the feeling these don't. But on the other hand, everything in running config and unmanaged config, I know that's gone in the meantime, but everything regarding deviations and so on is managed as a non-etcd resource. Should we tweak?
You would even need to change it to another, what is it? Group version. Because isn't the whole, what do we have? Inventory and config, right?
Yeah,
Isn't
so
the whole config stuff forwarded to the aggregated server?
yes. But
So
that's okay.
what no, I mean, it would then reside in a different group version even. It would need to pass over to inventory and not to config.
Yeah, or something else, right? Whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have the feeling, although they might be small, I have the feeling we should still put them in the same group. Or do people have a different opinion?
Do we see that these would get big enough to require being not stored in etcd? I don't see it being quite.
Well, I agree. So that was my original statement, right? So they will not be big, in my view, or they will not be as big as these, for sure. But if you treat them differently, that means that you have to add them to a different group and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if it's because you anyhow need to deal with a dedicated backend, right? What's the point of not using the same here, right?
I think it's easier if you have the same. Otherwise,
yeah, that's also my view. But yeah, but it doesn't. See, there is no good. There is no technical wait, that's also wrong. But here there is a good reason why we separate from etcd, right? Because of the size. Here that statement doesn't hold, but the statement to treat them in the same way as this is because of the consistency that it provides.
Exactly.
But as soon as you set the group to be the same as config, then it doesn't use etcd, and
yes,
that's it.
But we don't use etcd anyhow for this part, Alex. So as a result, that's for me the justification to do it. But
no, I'm just wondering if we could still use etcd and use the same group. It's just that I don't know how this is managed on.
Maybe it's possible. It's possible. It might be possible. I think you can, by the way. Yeah, I think I can because I allow, in my backend, but I have never tested it. I allow for this storage because the storage that sits under here per config resource, you can decide which provider you pick, and as such, you could still use etcd if you want.
Because that could be a solution. Just because etcd is for this kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, etcd is, it's the standard storage of Kubernetes, basically. It's the de facto standard storage of Kubernetes. So, yeah. But so, in the provider that I have, you could use etcd, by the way. I've not tested it, but you could even for this use etcd. But you have the limitation that if you manage config like the one we were testing with MBN, which has 2 million lines of configuration, you will not, it will fail. Or if your Yang model is bigger than the size of etcd, it will also fail. Right, so those things we know, right? That's why we by de facto separate them. But what we are we not all saying we should treat this the same way as this?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yes.
And by default, at the moment, this is BadgerDB for us right now. But the provider that I've built should allow, even I think I asked someone in Nokia to add a Postgres implementation. So there is a Postgres implementation in the meantime. So you could store this. So they can be stored in the same backend, and it can also be etcd, I think, but I've never tested it. Okay, but I think for me, what was important is that to treat them in the same way, right? I think we kind of agree on that, because that means I could add this in the config server in the meantime, right? Or someone else could do, and make a proposal on how the API would look like, right?
The only thing I believe we can require or can want to store secrets in etcd is just having external secrets operator or something like, or standard secrets operator within it.
But Evgeny, this is not the secret itself. This is a reference to a secret. We are leveraging whatever Kubernetes or your distro offers with respect to storing secrets, right? So the way secrets is implemented in Kubernetes is also, it is a reference that, and you could decide which backend and which providers that you use for secrets. So we would just leverage whatever is available there. So that's why I have this pointer here. So this resource, if you look what it actually does, and I think, I mean, if you look to the PR, you see, but it will change. I think the PR that I wrote at some point, you see, so it's called sensitive paths. And they were pointing, so there was a path. And I think then there was a secrets reference. Yeah, at the end of the day, it would point to a secret in the cluster, right? And the secret in the cluster is actually implemented based on whatever secrets provider and storage and whatever you use in your Kubernetes cluster. So we don't, so we just reference whatever is available, and secrets are a core resource in Kubernetes, so it will always be there, right? And then how it's implemented, we don't really care. Right? So that's the philosophy. So in other words, this just contains a path with a reference to a secret. So the content of this is fairly easy. Right?
No, noted.
Okay. And then the other important thing, but that's the consequence of this, is that that means that the config server needs to get access to the secrets, right? Which is sometimes a sensitive authorization topic. One of the things that we could do is contain it to a namespace, right? But okay, we can deal with that going forward. But I think if we have kind of a consensus on the architecture, we could start implementing this in config server and show how it would look like, right? Now, I think Severin, it also has a bit of an implication on how the SDK and or could look like, right? Because you might have to generate the data to a dedicated system, right? I same for SDC Lite at some point, right? But okay, let's first, let's maybe, I don't know if someone is willing to take a steps. Otherwise, I'll try to have an implementation or a prototype or a proposal for the configs by next week. And then people can have a look.
I think that would be great for our students.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, doc. So I think any other questions around this topic? If not, then maybe what is the other topic that so I think, Alex, what I heard is that you're going to look at this one?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So once the this path one is resolved, this path slice, then I will look into it, as otherwise there'll be a lot of conflicts and so on. So I'm just going to wait for that one to be ready, and then I'll resolve all the conflicts that are already existing, and then refresh the pull request that's there.
Yeah. Okay. So am I right that this is using the data server as a library, or are we also going to put that logging somewhere in the repo?
That's a good question. There is one file that I added to data server to do this into context and from context, and these sort of default logger logic, but this is a single file. We could have SDC logging, so I have a repo in the SDC that's logging that just has this file in it that then we can reuse across all the other repositories as well. Maybe that does make sense. But
I think I would prefer to make it a separate library, right? Because otherwise we have always this issue that if the data server changes, we have to re-import it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is a very small.
Yeah,
library,
correct. It's small. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But I'll put it into something new in there, and then use this, and then you can use this also for the PR or the issue that's open in the config server as well.
Correct. Yeah. Then we'll take that in. Yeah. Correct. So then it becomes straightforward. Yeah.
Yep. Good.
Okay.
Yep. Do it this way.
Then in terms of the other items, this should become higher priority, I guess. Right? I'm just trying to sense where the other pieces are sitting into the priority list. This one should go higher.
Do we have a nice way to do this? I mean, disabling the target, it could be part of the discovery rule, as this is sort of what defines the target itself.
Yeah, so the challenge with the target is a resource that are normally, it's a derived object, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how would we do it? Disabling a target. Now, because it's an etcd, it's an etcd resource, we could still have an item in it that, like, let's say a parameter called admin state or something like that, right? What we typically use. That basically determines whether or not we are going to take action to that system, right? And someone sets it, right? If that makes sense, right? So in other words, we could add a parameter in it that has admin state. The alternative to that is, like you were saying, is use a discovery. But how would you mark it in the discovery? Because we have multiple ways to do discovery. Is it for all the targets in the discovery rule, or only one? Or is it?
My quick thought was just that in the discovery rule, you could have an enabled true or false flag, and then any targets that would be sourced from this discovery rule would be would have the sync and apply suspended. But this was just a quick thought, because modifying the target resource itself doesn't work so well in my mind, just because it's an automatically generated resource anyway. Or rather, an SDC managed resource. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it should be not user edited.
Yes, we can have a generic flag with admin states enable, disable, which is propagated through the target, right? And then if it's set, the config server will suspend. I will not do. So we still create a target in the discovery itself, but the config server will basically not transact to the device, right? If that makes sense.
That's one part, but the other part is from the data server syncing the data, right? Let's say we're doing
But
an
also
upgrade.
not. But also not. Okay, so in that case, we should really remove the target, which we can, right? So we can basically remove the target from the data server completely. Is that what you want?
I think that makes sense. I think the use case here is in an upgrade, for example, where we're now upgrading a function and we need to then update some other parameters as well, and so on. And we don't want to be syncing in the time when the state of the system might not be stable yet.
Yeah, okay. So yes, then we remove the target from the data store, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we create it whenever admin state is enabled, which I think we have all the infrastructure available to do so. It's just it's a plumbing all over the place, but yeah. The reason why I was not initially thinking of the discovery rule was we also have, for example, a complete subnet, right? So I don't think you are using it like that, right? So if you manage, so in that case, they will all be suspended, right?
That's true. But so at which level would you have had it then if you also think that having it at the target resources doesn't make sense?
No, it can. I think you can. See, we are using, I've implemented almost everywhere server-side apply, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way server-side apply works, right, is you can have different managers. Let me take a step. It's almost like the data server manages overrule. So wait, in data server, we have this overlay approach, right? So we have config 1, config 2, config 3, config 4, right? And so what we do is with the prioritization, we manage which config wins, right? That's the approach in data. You look to what Kubernetes has developed with server-side apply. There you can have different leaves or lists or whatever, right? So you can basically have different pieces of the config snippet managed by different, what we call field managers, okay? So one option that you can do is, let's say, the discovery rule, it creates the target, right? But the admin state parameter, let's say if we agree that that's the one that we use, right, will only be managed by another field manager. That is possible in Kubernetes. What you will not be able to do, or what will happen in that case, is that, of course, the discovery rule can delete a target, and that means that also that whole thing is gone, right? But for example, if you have a system where you still discover and you see that the system is alive, the target remains, you could have an ability with a field manager, with server-side apply, that basically says admin state is never going to be changed by the current controller that we have, but you can have another field manager that is via patch changing the state of the admin, and as a result, you can manage them as individual. You can manage them as individual overrules. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is possible, and so the way to do that in Kubernetes is server-side apply and a patch. So that means that the current controller should never set admin state, right? It should only be used by that field manager, and so that could be the CLI, for example, right? So. But you would implement that through a patch.
Would this also work if someone were to go, let's say, and do kubectl edit resource?
Yeah. I don't know how edit. I think edit is managed as an admin, right? We have to test it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, there's one drawback of having it as the target, which would be that if you're using GitOps, you can't specify that something should be disabled at resource at the Git level, right? So you wouldn't be able to have target suspend true or whatever in your Git. It would only be on the cluster like this.
Yes.
So maybe this is not necessarily a case that I could see being used, but at the same time, it's a consideration because it could be that you'd want that to be reflected in Git.
Yeah, you cannot set it through the CI. Although today target is not settable, so we could also implement both, right? If admin state is set in discovery rule, it's managed by the discovery rule. If it's not set by the discovery rule and it's absent, it will never be implied, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to have a flag then that discovery rule is managing the admin state or not, right? So which we could do, in which case you set it, but then as a user, you shouldn't control it, right?
Yeah, but this then becomes a bit a bit too complex. Like too many.
Too many corner cases and all this overlap.
Yeah, I would choose one or the other.
That's fine.
And go like this. I don't have a specific strong desire for it to be in the discovery rule. Neither do I think that it definitely should not be in the target. I mean, it makes sense for it to be in the target. I just don't know about the usability when it comes to the fact that you have some server-side applies, and then I could see the case you just quickly edit the resource using kubectl edit, add this suspend flag, save it, and then there shouldn't be a conflict there. And I don't know if that would happen or not. So this is the use case that I see personally.
See, I mean, we could implement it in such a way that we don't set admin state, right? Via the discovery rule if it's not set, right? In which case you can use server-side apply for test purposes, right? But from the moment you set it in discovery rule, it will create a conflict. And that means that the target functionality will fail when you change something. So that's the consequence of server-side apply, unless we do a force in the discovery rule that he always wins.
Yeah, I would not go for the part where we have in multiple places this control.
Yeah. But I see the point is it's nice sometimes to test it, right? The problem with the discovery rule is it will take 1 or 2 minutes before it applies, potentially, right? So the problem is that it's not going to be effective necessarily immediately.
In which case, no.
In the discovery rule case, because it happens. So the way the discovery rule works is that when you change the data of a discovery rule, it immediately picks it up, right? It stops the current discovery rule, picks up the new one, and starts to do discovery based on the new data, right? But that, if you have like a subnet scan, right, could take some time, right? If you have a subnet with 1,000 boxes, I think that you can set the amount of concurrency that you do. I think, but typically it's like 2 or 5 or something like that. So it will take it scans and it will have to iterate over all the targets before that new change will be set. You see?
Can't you first set that stuff and then do the check for this disabled flag and then do the discovery?
Yeah, but you don't know whether the box is still there or not, right? So the disadvantage of discovery is it will not be immediately. And the other thing that you can do is that you have a separate controller. What you were saying, Marcus, what you could do is have a separate controller that looks at that's managing the admin state and is updating the target, right? So you almost get, that's the other thing that you can do is you build a dedicated controller for suspend state management, right?
Maybe the easiest way is to go with the idea that it would be on the target to start with, and see if these kubectl edit or in K9's doing the edit command, if this would then cause conflicts or not. I think that it might be a bit much to. I don't think that this state should be managed across 2 resources and kept in sync across 2 resources. I think this can be a bit too much, too complex.
Yeah.
So I would personally avoid this at the beginning, especially as sort of the use cases are, as it stands, relatively minimal, right?
Yeah, but maybe the idea of using a dedicated controller for it makes sense, right? Because what happens today, so if you look to the target, is managed by actually 4 controllers at the moment. Okay. So the discovery creates it or deletes it. The status of config ready and data store ready, and there is this 4 states. They are each managed by a dedicated controller, each having their own condition. So there is a point to say that if we want this and we want this quick, right, you could implement a dedicated controller which is only managing admin state. Right? And it listens to, we could still decide how you, where you get the data from. So that could still be the discovery rule, right? And that he is then, so that controller is taking discovery rule input and is just applying it like Marcus was trying to suggest across all the targets that are alive or within that, or that are managed to that discovery rule. And then you have a very quick response, and you have one entity managing the admin state of a target resource. You see what I'm saying? So I have the feeling that's probably the best approach. And then you can still decide if you only, at some point, if you only want to do it for a few of them, you could introduce a dedicated CR that basically says disable for these blah, 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 right? So it's these rules, and then he is just, he's using both the discovery rule and that CR as input and managing it, right? But the way it's happening stays the same. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to keep it a little bit in the Flux customization concept, where you have on the customization a suspend flag, which effectively just turns any reconciliation of that resource into a no op. Obviously, it doesn't translate exactly across, but I think that having another CR to list CRs that should be suspended is maybe too over-engineered, or this resource. I mean, sure, another controller to manage that admin state and keep in sync across target and discovery rule is fine.
But the other, what you could also do, how does Flux do it? Is it with an environment variable or something like that, or?
It's part of the spec.
The spec of what? Of Flux?
Of Flux customizations. So the
yeah, but that means that it's kind of at the config server level, right?
Yeah, and the customization would be the equivalent of the target in our case.
Yeah, but in Flux it basically says suspend for everything, right? So Flux is suspended.
No. It's suspended for that specific customization, which is
okay.
sort of, let's say, a pointer in a Git repo to resources. So this specific set of resources should not be reconciled anymore.
Yeah. So for
Which
us,
would be like that set of resources is our target equivalent. Which is why I think having it on target is nice, because target, we know we suspend this target, which means this target is no longer reconciled or you know, doing this sync looping, which makes sense. But the target itself, my issue came from the fact that the target is an SDC managed resource. So how should a user should not probably be interacting with an SDC created resource, a managed resource. That's why I had the discovery rule. But yes, okay, discovery rule has some other things where you can discover many targets from one discovery rule, and potentially you don't want to suspend all of them. So that's the start point. Although if I think about how I would do it currently without this, it would be I would delete the discovery rule until I've done all of my changes, and then I would create this discovery rule again.
Right, which means that you want to manage it at the discovery rule level. But so in that case, having a controller looking at the discovery rule independent of the discovery is okay, right?
Yes. Yeah, sure. That's I think fine. I'm just that would be my workaround in the current setup, right? That's what I mean.
So the idea is to use a controller that looks at the let's say admin state, right? And it basically changes the admin state of all targets that are discovered through discovery rule, through that discovery rule.
You're currently not sharing. I don't know if that was intentional.
No. Okay. 1 second. My screen went blanked. I just wrote this.
It's, for me, very blurry currently. I can't read anything. I don't know if it's the same for everyone else. Oh, there we go. It's fixed now.
So use a controller that looks at discovery rule admin state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And change the admin state of all targets that are discovered through that discovery rule.
I guess this would open the door for down the road, allowing you to modify the target directly, right?
Not really, because if you would do that, right, this controller will complain.
If it was set in the discovery rule.
Yes, but it would do this for it. Basically, what you're basically saying is admin state is managed by this controller.
And what would be the advantage of this rather than just having the discovery rule controller handle it, or whatever it is that's creating these target resources?
It's quicker. So if you set this, so the discovery rule will, it's basically to the point of Marcus, the discovery rule, its implementation, and I don't think we should change it, it creates an iterable list, right? So for example, if you would set a subnet of IPv6, which has 64-bit or 46 bits or something, it would crawl each of these IPs, right? So the problem is, how it works is we create an iterable list, right? And we walk it through in steps in order to not create too many worker tasks at the same time, right? So that's why we spread the work. And I think I would keep that implementation like that. Otherwise, we end up with lots of scaling issues.
Okay.
But there is a point of doing this quickly. So what this controller would do, it would watch a DR, right? And it would list all the targets that have a label set, because in the targets there, the discovery rule is either to an annotation or a label. I forgot, right? So we know, so you can just list all the targets with that discovery rule. And it can also list or watches the target when they change, right? And as such, it updates the admin state of the target. So it will be way quicker.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
But yeah. So that's the advantage of using a controller like this. But so you have to watch it. So you have to watch the DR and the target, right? Because the target could be changed. So let's say it could be that you change the discovery rule, but the target has not been discovered right yet. So the discovery rule, the discovery controller will discover the target, create it. Admin state is not set. So that when this controller has admin state management, it will then update the config with admin state set, right? So that's why it has to watch both the DR as well as the target. But its goal is to manage the admin state of the CR, right? Of the target CR.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think it's fairly straightforward to do.
Yep. I need to slowly drop off. I've got another.
Yeah, we are over time. We are way over time, but it was a good discussion, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's good.
All right.
Then we take the other ones and discuss.
Yeah,
them.
we'll squash them next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Then thanks everyone. Appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.
Have a good rest of the week. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.